those of you who are housewives will be familiar with the way in which, if a beam of light is coming through the window, one sees all of a sudden all kinds of mini objects or creatures that one hadn't seen before. Whereas if one cleans without too much light, one goes more quickly. So it is with the soul. A soul that cannot be alone with itself or with its God and Maker is somewhat like the soul that is more comfortable in a half light. But if that's the case until death, then what is the chance of getting close to the true light on the other side, at least immediately? People glibly think that it's automatic entry. It's not. We have great demands with regard to getting into certain universities and professions, and yet getting into heaven we think is automatic. Well, I've got news for you. We don't know the proportion, but the Lord himself warns of the way in which the way to losing the soul is far more broad and interesting. The other, he uses the word straight, that's the old translation, narrow. And that means we've got to sweat and not take it too easily. Now, this pattern has not just come out today. It's there from when man was man, at least from the fall onwards. But I want to zoom into, first of all, the fact that the Lord is warning with regard to not fleeing the light, but also looking back to what we had in the fairly long first reading from the second book of Chronicles, in which the pattern is already there. Now, the word angel in Hebrew is Maliach, which means one who is a herald. He's an announcer. He's a proclaimer. And as in the case of the Annunciation, we have the archangel proclaiming something to the Blessed Virgin. So this word comes in more than once in this reading. The Lord is sending somebody with a message, a messenger, angelos. Now, these in the Old Testament were prophets, but right through history, the Lord is sending messengers. He is sending messages from books, from powerful recorded talks, from sermons heard in church, but also himself. He is sending messages in the form of reminders, things that happen. We know that terrible tragedies can be a salutary warning and an invitation not to count on what is passing, but to come to ground zero where at last, in a broken state, the soul can be worked upon. So don't treat tragedies as just tragedies. They can be invitations to leave the earth and not belong to it, and to fall back on the one who made you. Events. History is his story, and providence acts through events. So read the language of God in the unexpected. It's a message given actually to us also through Joan of Norwich. She was taught this directly in her reclusory, that there is a providence in things, and that things just do not happen by chance, but there is a guiding hand. And she was trying on the behalf of the Lord to teach us to see that there is actually something there to be gathered, the grace of the event. So don't try to fight it. Listen and read it. It gives peace actually. Otherwise the world has to behave as we want it to, and we're never at peace. But I want to zoom into specific questions of prophecy, because that too is there. And the prophet works on two levels. He speaks out, is the root of pro and phemi, and he also speaks in advance, pro in the sense of warning ahead. Now there are prophecies, not only in scripture, but there are certain prophecies that have come down in different cultures, but we have our own in Ireland. And I want just to conclude with a reference to these, because I've heard them from more than one source, and they go right back. So there's no smoke without fire. Now these were already known by people several, and I mean quite a few generations ago. They go right back. And therefore they've come from somewhere which people were listening to and which probably was authentic. And some of them are already being realized before our eyes. Others yet to come. But take them for what they are, but don't ignore them, because actually it'll help you to see that there is a vision in things. That providence has no surprises. The Lord is outside time, and He's like watching this massive video where time is not quite operating in the same way as we are. Just to explain, prophecy is possible because God, being out of time, sees it all. But He sees this too. Within the all, He sees, if this happens, this particular event, then another series of events will happen in accordance, because cause and effect act like a chain. So if you change one cause there, this other series will happen. And by the way, that's the principle of a miracle. If a miracle happens, it's that God has intervened in the normal cause and effect chain, and He's put another cause, His own, to make something else happen, which shouldn't happen. There is a film I saw years and years ago. It was Back to the Future, and there are points in there when the titles on a newspaper suddenly change form because something is happening or has happened which is going to change. So again, it's puzzling for us, but it makes sense if we see the vision of the one who made us. Now listen to this vision way back, probably centuries ago by now, but it's something which is worth listening to. The Irish will have plenty of money yet, but it will be no good to them. Now, we don't know what that means, but it could mean that there'll be some huge crash, which is not impossible actually as the world goes right now, in the monetary system as we know it. A father will meet his son in the street, and they will not know each other. Women will lose their shame. Men will become weak. They will not know summer from winter. The Irish will lose their faith, and it will be the fault of the priests. Now, just to be aware, when these came out centuries ago and were heard by many, many people and handed on, it was just impossible given the strength of the faith in Ireland. And so, if they took the care to hand these on, it means that they were taking them very seriously, and therefore we must do the same. Why? God, as we see, is sending messengers and messengers, events and events, and we need to have the spectacles to read the code and to see actually what He's saying. Because right now we are the generation which possibly is going to have to see the outworking of this, especially the little people. We don't know what's ahead. So it's as well to get our act together, at least in Lent, and to reflect what is important to me. There are only certain things I can do. In fact, there's only one thing I can actually do, and it's handling what I actually own, my soul. Even my body I can't have full control of, but my soul I must. And the body and all the material around it will actually return to dust. But the soul, as it is right now, will go on. And if we don't do it, we too are nervous of the light.